Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to look at the news media these elections because it is at election time that the role and the nature and the health of news media is in really stark relief and under the most scrutiny. To do that and to look at some of the key themes that have emerged so far as we vote for the 18th Lok Sabha elections, I'm going to be talking to Dhanya Rajendran. She's the editor-in-chief of the News Minute and also chairperson of DigiPub that represents independent digital news media in India. Dhanya, thanks for making time. I'm sure it's really hectic.
Thank you, Anuradha. I mean, I've only watched your interviews on television when I was a young reporter and thought, how are these long interviews done? It's nice to be on one of them. Actually, it's less busier time for me considering all the elections in the 5 southern states are over. We had one assembly election, which is Andhra Pradesh. I'm now thinking whether should I go to Uttar Pradesh or not for some coverage. But yes, less busier times, we can focus on things other than election now.
Let me go into something that is very clear these days, and it has emerged over a couple of, almost 10 years now. And that is that public belief and trust in news media is broken. You were on the ground, you did do some reporting on the ground, and you have reporters on the ground. Do you see this as a real challenge? What did you encounter?
I think the challenge has been around for some time now, at least the last 5 or 6 years, and it keeps getting worse. In the sense that there is an active, there's an active group out there which is trying to discredit the media for any kind of good or bad work that they do, right? So at the end of the day, what is happening is people are not able to differentiate between who's telling you the facts, who's not telling you the facts, who's challenging something which is not true, who's leaving it unchallenged. People are not able to differentiate that. They think everybody behaves the same. And I think the atmosphere itself is too polarized. For example, when I was a television journalist, which is around more than 10 years ago, that was a time when we used to cover the 2G scam, the Tetra scam. There were so many, the coal scam. Since I was a reporter from Bengaluru and Chennai, I used to cover a lot of these scams. And people used to tell us, oh, you guys are doing really good work. You're questioning those in power. There was a BSNL scam after which Dayanidhi Maran had to resign. There was so many things, right? But today, people are so polarized that if I cover a scam or if I ask a question, then immediately, oh, that's because you are against this government. That's because you don't like this politics. For example, there was an actor called Rashmika Mandanna. I put out an advertisement where she is on this bridge and she's on the road or whatever.
Of the Atal Setu in Mumbai, yeah.
Of the Atal Setu, she's talking about it. So I simply tweeted saying, is it a surrogate ad? If it's a surrogate ad, then how much payment has been given for it and under whose under whose expenditure does it come? I was told so badly, but it does not matter. My question is relevant. The reason being, whether you're a BJP supporter or a Congress supporter, you should acknowledge that there is a certain expense which the Election Commission allows, which means every candidate can spend this much. There's no expenditure for the party, right? There's no expenditure cap for the party. So let's say if a party is spending that money, and if they are spending on surrogate ads, they're supposed to anyway declare it at some point of time. So I think the Election Commission of India has to wake up to the fact that just giving a cap to candidates doesn't work anymore, because a party is spending crores and crores of money, whichever party it is, on surrogate ads. And in this case, if it was a BJP which gave money, I'm saying a lot of other parties are doing it. It was a simple thing that I said. I did not say any party name. I simply said, if there's a surrogate ad, should not that be counted as election expenditure? It's a simple question any citizen should ask seeing that ad. The reactions to it are so extreme, which is why I say we are so polarized as society that we are not able to see what is right or wrong anymore. I'm not saying this for everybody in society, but for a lot of people, it's just about my ideology or my party or what. And that ideology can be political, can be so many other things, right? Once you believe in that, there's no other way. There's no way that you're seeing something else. So the media, I think, is a casualty in this conversation.
Casualty, and also I think for some parties in the media, very much players in this unfolding ideological battle and polarization, right? So certain section of media and the role of news media has become a casualty, but certain news media players have also become participants in this game. I don't think there's any doubt about that, is there?
No, of course. For example, when Newsclick founder Probir was arrested, while all of us believe that law should take its own course, the way he was arrested is something that everyone should question, right? But we have media houses egging on the police, telling the police this well done. So those are times when we are blurring our own, our own boundaries. Who exactly are we voicing out for? Who exactly are we speaking for? And as you said, a lot of media houses have really forgotten what their job is, right? Whether I'm speaking to A or B, to ask the right questions is my job. So when you see media houses even interviewing the Prime Minister of the country, for example, the other day I was watching an interview in which the Prime Minister is saying that I don't do Hindu Muslim. Or the Prime Minister says that it's because of free bus rides for women that
Yeah, the metros are.
these are things that journalists can challenge and should immediately challenge, right? Now, even let's say in interview it went unchallenged because many times as interviewers we suddenly may not remember facts and figures. When you put it out there, there can be some caveat. There can be some way in which you should tell your audience that this can be challenged. This notion or this statement can be challenged. When you don't do all that, a section of the people do not believe you anymore. Then there is another section of people who believe that whatever the media does is wrong. It's questionable. Now, I'm not saying the media has behaved well or the media has behaved consistently well all the time, but the disbelief on the media is so high that even if you do the right thing, there are just too many people who will tell you that no, that's not right. That's not the truth. You're lying.
There is a part of journalism, the heart of journalism, and the mainstay, which is reportage, right? And that is very different from editorials. It is very different from views and opinions and columns. So, do you think if more reportage, more investment, more time and effort goes into reportage, and we know that is the most expensive part of journalism, that we will be able to address the trust deficit that the public has?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's a problem at all. For example, let's take demolitions of homes in Uttar Pradesh, right? Or Madhya Pradesh, where we have seen Muslim homes being demolished for various reasons, right? Everybody was on the ground. All news channels were on the ground. All newspapers were on the ground. What kind of reporting do we get from there? In fact, we get skewed reporting. Sometimes I wish that reporters did not reach that place because they will skew the entire picture for you. I mean, there were reporters who were egging on the what is it, the demolitions, right? So I don't think that is going to solve this. That is not going to solve this at all because they will reach the place and they will muddy the waters. Delhi riots, we have seen reporting with extreme biased. In so many, I mean, I can take examples from here also and tell you how many places reporters have gone and they have told the line of their particular channel or, for example, there was a murder of a young woman called Neha Hiremat in Karnataka. Her father came and said it is a love jihad and that the man who murdered Neha, a Muslim man, must have, did try to convert her and then when she did not, he killed her. Now, the father has all the rights to say that. The father is angry, the father wants justice, the father believes is the reason why his daughter was killed. That's fine. The father can say that. There is a certain language which has been introduced into his acts because that language has been doing the rounds for a long time, right? And who's responsible for that? Us in the media too, because this language never went unchallenged. So when we reach there to report on Neha's death, obviously we have to carry what the father says as it is. You cannot sanitize his version of what happened and his angst or his anger. But what do you do with the rest of it? Do you not have to challenge a politician who gives the same viewpoint? Do you not have to then tell your audience that in the last few weeks, multiple deaths like this have happened, multiple murders like this have happened, where it happened between different religions? So the reporters there go and muddy the waters. So I'm saying reporting is not a solution for this anymore.
What is the solution? Because you're dealing with this on a daily basis, right? So how
I
and
think
and
there's
on
enough public pressure
extremely
now.
charged news stories.
There is a lot of public pressure now, at least this election, because we are
Mm.
specifically talking about election. I
Yeah.
do see a lot of public pressure this election. People are sort of,
Mm.
people are disgruntled.
Mm.
They are telling the media that these questions are not enough. Why didn't you ask this question? For example, there was a senior journalist who put up Rajdeep Sardesai, who put up a picture of him doing arm wrestling with Bridge Bhushan. Immediately there was an outrage about it, right? I mean, that's one of the smaller things which have happened, but in the sense that it was not part of an interview, but later he did.
It was part of marketing the interview, isn't it? Which is what social
Outrageous. I
media
mean, why
makes
would
you
you?
do.
What I'm saying is that I wouldn't do something like that off camera too. Forget the fact that you took a picture and you put
Yeah,
it on
so
online.
Dhanya, not to justify this at all, but but look at where it comes from. It comes from the fact that you have to be on social media, you have to announce what you're doing, you've got to market what you're doing, you've got to have followers, you've got to generate debate, right?
But
And
that
also
cannot
you've got to be
come.
entertaining. So, like you said, I wouldn't have wanted to do that, but a lot of journalists today feel the pressure to be entertaining because also offering up journalism are content creators, people who have absolutely no training or interest in being journalists, but are out there in the same domain that journalism occupies.
No, so Rajdeep's example I took, and I said it's actually a small thing compared to a lot of
Yeah,
other
sure.
problematic things that are happening this election. So many times now I've seen the public pushing back, saying that why are you not asking about unemployment? Why are you not
Mm.
asking about the fact that there is underemployment? So I see that question being asked from the public, which in turn is making the media, the mainstream media, ask these questions. So public pushback will work, I feel. And that's not just in politics, right? For example, let's say there is a murder which is done by a rich industrialist's son. We ourselves have seen how many times stories don't get reported because a call would have come to the channel or the newspaper. But then nowadays there's public pressure, right? Public pressure is there to cover those stories. So like that, I believe that at some point of time, there is one section of the public which will tell this media that it's not about content creation. It is not about entertainment. You are not entertainers. You are journalists. Ask the questions you're supposed to ask. And I feel that pressure will come on journalists. And I really don't think that journalists should think they're content creators. They're not. We are not creating any content. We are actually finding out what is happening. We can report it in ways which make people want to come and read it. Yes, that is different. For example, the Prajwal Revanna, the NDA candidate, the JD's candidate in Hassan, there is a whole issue that 3,000 videos of him with women, in which he's not seen in most and almost all the videos, but then it's supposedly shot by him. These videos are out there. How the point is there has to be sustained reporting on it, right? And there are 100 news organizations doing the same reporting. So how do you do something which is a bit different, which also is meaningful, which you make people watch or read? These are the questions that I should ask myself, not as shall I go to Hassan or Holland Narsipura where this is happening tomorrow and just dance in the market and create content? Or shall I do arm wrestling with Prajwal Revanna if he comes back from Germany whenever he comes? That's not how I should create content, right? I should create content by actually thinking, how can I present different angles of the story in a very serious and meaningful way? And I'm telling you, there are readers for it. There are people who view that. It's because we have dumbed down ourselves that people are forced to dumb down themselves.
So, because you brought up Prajwal Revanna, I was going to come to it later, but you talked about, I think in one of your tweets, about the media gag that was in place. Because I think the first reaction that people would have had is, why don't we know about this? Why didn't we know about this if it was going on for so long and so many women, right? So talk about the media gag and talk about how this has been used. I mean, you go back to 2014 and you remember the famous judge Swatantra Veer, who was allegedly, somebody had accused him of sexual harassment and he had got a direction from the court saying, do not report on this case. And it was a complete lockdown, right? Are media gags functioning like that? And it did it in this particular case of Prajwal Revanna.
So I think there are multiple problems in this Prajwal Revanna story. Now, for those who are watching, it might come as a surprise shock or perhaps not, that there are a lot of Karnataka politicians who have sex tapes,
Sure.
right? Them having sex with all kinds of people, with whatever. There are lots of politicians with sex tapes in Karnataka. And I'm not kidding. At one point of time, 6 to 12 politicians had gone to court and gotten gag orders saying their tapes may come out at some point of time. So for the media in Karnataka, if somebody says tape is coming, they think it's a sex tape, right? So when this Prajwal Revanna got a gag order in June or July 2023, I'm assuming a lot of people thought these are sex tapes, which are consensual sex tapes, but recorded by someone. I think a lot of people thought so. Only one channel, I think, had the tapes, and they went to this BJP person called Devaraja Gowda, because he says in one of the interviews that somebody who had a tape came to me saying that there's a gag order. What do we do with it? That's when he watches the tapes. And he also in his initial interview says that these women are responsible. Why did they go to Prajwal Revanna? That's the kind of language he also employs, right? So I believe there was a dual problem. One is that those who knew that there could be tapes assume that these are again the normal sex tapes. And second, there was a gag order. So people are like, anyway, there's a gag order. What's the point of watching and putting this
But
out?
this is serious crime. These are sexual crimes, right?
So when they watch these tapes and imagine 3,000 clips, right? So it's only in very few clips that there is actual violence, as in the sense that women are begging, because sexual violence can be many different ways. It could
Sure.
be because of power hierarchies,
Yeah.
and could have been forcing. So all that is not visible to us in the video. But in the video, you can visibly see 2 or 3 women begging, saying, please do not do this to me. At least one woman is very, very uncomfortable as to what is happening. It's only when these visuals come out that people realize that, hey, this is not a normal sex tape. This is not someone having consensual sex. There is more to this, right? So that's the problem. I think the media gags in Karnataka, it's ridiculous. We wrote about this last year. I mean, I've been talking about this for years now. We in fact wrote an article last year, myself, my colleague Shivani. We looked at the cases. There are 600 gags in total across Karnataka given from 2013. Only in Bengaluru courts. We have not even looked at other district courts. And the gags are called ex parte injunctions. So basically, if you go to court and say that there may be something about me and Dhanya may report it, please stop Dhanya from reporting. The court is not even asking me for my opinion on this. They are simply saying, Anuradha, take the gag and go. Right? So that's an ex parte injunction. And the courts here are so ready to give ex parte injunctions. It was first started by this politician called Rajiv Chandrasekhar from the BJP. He's one of the first people who got an ex parte injunction against the wire. Then so many people, Tejasvi Surya, before his first election, there was a woman who had accused him of harassment. He took a gag order. It was vacated. Both these gag orders were vacated by a higher court later, saying this is against freedom of expression. And after that, and now it's spread to all parties, JDS, Congress. The BJP, of course, gets a higher number of ex parte injunctions, but it's ridiculous. Now it's not just politicians, normal people are getting it. I've got 2 gag orders from a woman whose husband was accused of harassing his Dalit colleague to the extent the Dalit colleague died of suicide. So we wrote stories about it. The woman has sued for a gag, and the court has given a gag order. We wrote the story. Despite the gag, now we have a contempt of court case. We have all of us are facing gag orders where there was a Swamiji who was accused of rape. 2 or 3 of his devotees went and got a gag order. Again, reporting about him is very iffy these days.
What's the way out of this? Because it seems quite insurmountable, right?
No, we have to
And
approach the high court.
it's also allowing this legal blanket on crimes.
So we have to approach the High Court and say that ex parte injunctions cannot be given like this. I mean, when I use the word ridiculous, I'm not saying that lightly at all. It is ridiculous because someone like Lata Rajnikant, who's based out of Chennai, she comes to Bangalore and gets a gag order telling media not to report on one financial scam that she's accused of. That's how bad things are. So I think the only way is for the High Court to jump in. Like we have to approach the High Court, and then the High Court will have to give instructions that ex parte injunctions cannot be given like this. In ex parte or any injunction has to be the last course, right?
And this has to be done collectively, right? So it cannot be the News Minute and the Wire or the Indian Express or the
No,
Times
no,
of
we are
India. It
looking
has
at
to
it.
be
Yes.
either the Editors Guild of India or DigiPub or the Press Council. How?
The easiest way to go to court is if you are an affected party, right? Because you give a PIL, I was thinking of a PIL, but my lawyers are saying that we'll file a writ petition. 2 newspapers have agreed to join the writ petition. So we'll have to find a case in which all 3 of us have been gagged together. So we move the court as an affected party and then mention that these gags are ridiculous. For example, there was another case where this woman called Chaitra Kundapura, she's again a BJP small-time leader who got caught in a scam for a question paper scam. And then when she goes to jail, everybody reports saying Chaitra Kundapura, Chaitra Kundapura. Kundapura is also a place in Karnataka. So somebody goes to the court and says that repeating her name multiple times is defamation to the place. So you have to stop saying Kundapura. And the court has given a gag order. So now if you see most newspapers write as Chaitra K. I mean, I don't understand what magistrates are thinking while giving gag orders. Some of the gag orders really make me think that there's no application of the law or the mind there. And it has been criticized so much. Still, people are continuously giving it. So I hope the High Court will intervene at some point.
The other challenge to news media, of course, has been the use of laws by government, right, against them. We saw last week Probir Purkayastha of Newsclick finally being released and the Supreme Court declaring his arrest illegal. Uh, DigiPub has come out with a statement, and this is not the first instance, and this is perhaps not going to be the last instance. What are the safe, what do we need to do as the media again to protect these rights? And here again, the polarization, the political polarization in media does come into play, isn't it?
No, 100%. The polarization in the media and the polarization against the media, within the media and against the media also comes to play, because at the end of the day, it's like your rights can be compromised on if you do not believe or subscribe to my ideology.
Yeah.
That kind of attitude is very much prevalent, which is very dangerous. For example, the News Minute, we had written about this journalist come YouTuber called Teenmar Mallanna, who was in Telangana and who is from Telangana, and he had been arrested by the TRS government there. And every time he got bail, they would book him under some other FIR. They would invoke an earlier FIR and they would keep arresting him. We wrote about him. We spoke up for him. It did not matter which political party he's part of, right? So I think when laws are misused by governments, whether union government or state governments, against the media, everyone has to come together. But this particular union government by the BJP has had a penchant of introducing new laws every time they believe, and they have something spectacularly against digital media. They want to control digital media in some way or the other, which is why initially they brought the digital media rules. I'm the first litigant along with Wire against it. We went to court, multiple people went to court, and there were a lot of stay orders, at least 2 stay orders. I think that's the reason why now they brought the broadcast bill.
Broadcast regulations
Yeah.
through the broad, yeah.
So I'm saying that there are multiple ways in which they are trying to control the media, especially digital media, OTT. See, it's not just the news media, right? They also want to control
Streaming.
content. Yeah, any content. Therefore, people have to realize that at the end of the day, the person who's at the receiving end is the consumer. Because it is your right of information, it is your right to creative content, which is being censored by a government. Which is the reason why someone like T.M. Krishna, a singer, he's not a news personality. He went to court. He went to the Madras High Court. One of the stays were from the Madras High Court against digital media rules, saying that if you put this many rules and if you make it difficult for the media to function, then the person who's going to ultimately suffer is me, who's a news consumer. I mean, that kind of awareness has to be there in people, because governments can come and governments can go. But the damage that is being done to our democracy, to our values, to that is irreversible, right? For example, like I was in the beginning, I said when we were all reporting while the UPA was in power, all of us reported about scams. We also reported about Aadhaar, how there were so many people who were skeptical about how Aadhaar would unleash this war against privacy. At that time, the same people who are now in the government were the ones against the Aadhaar. My position has not changed. I am still fighting for privacy of Indian citizens. It is your position that has changed because you change, the government changed for you. My point is, your positions cannot change. So that's what I want to ask people, that when a media house is being penalized, like for example, Newsclick, for things that they may not even have done, then you as a person cannot say that, okay, you are against my ideology, so I will sit back and relax that the government is taking your case. That cannot be your attitude to something which is not.
You're spending a lot of time with lawyers.
Yeah, but thankfully there are lots of good lawyers in this country who work pro bono. And therefore, otherwise, I'm telling you, we cannot function. If there were no good lawyers, half the media houses would have shut down.
Given that India is the last ranking of the press freedom index, India was 159 out of 180 countries, or at 159 out of 180 countries. The future doesn't look very bright, does it?
I do have a small problem with the freedom index. I mean, because I don't understand sometimes how it works. And I have this feeling that we always rank really low in the freedom index because the sheer number of cases, right? And we are a very large country. So there are lots of cases where journalists are either arrested, they're attacked, they're murdered. And I think because of sheer number also, we're always down in the list. But if you take a look at specific states, there are many states where people are functioning without any problem. There may be one or two here and there, but it's not a large issue. But how bad is the future? I think it's quite traumatic for young journalists nowadays. You're on social media now, where you're continuously abused, you're always trolled, harassed, etc. So the return back is quite less for young journalists, right? They're thinking neither in salary, nor is that time where you go out to the crowd and say, I'm a journalist and everybody will look at you with respect. That time is gone. Today, if you write something, there are 100 people to abuse you. But this is also the best time to be in journalism
I mean,
because
the most, you,
challenging time.
not just, this is when it's needed the most, isn't it? The most challenging times are when this profession is needed the most, because
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I said. Though it can be very traumatic, it may not pay you very well. At least 5 to 8 years here. This is a time when the country needs good journalists. Journalists who can understand things, who can absorb reality and then report accordingly. So it's the best time to be a journalist and also the worst time to be a journalist.
there's a lot of conversation, especially in the run up to this year's elections, and as it continues, about the videos that Dhruv Rathee drops, and people who are not journalists, but who have picked up causes and highly editorialized, highly opinionated communication of their causes, right? This could be, and the examples I have picked are anti-establishment. There are equally strong examples of people who are pro-establishment. Where do you see these people and their role?
So I also watch Dhruv Rathee's videos. I watch a lot of other people's videos like Desh Bhakt, which is Akash Banerjee, who was my colleague in Times Now incidentally, and now he's very famous on YouTube. But my point is whether it's a right wing or the left wing, and you have a lot of what is it? I forgot that right wing guy, String Reveals, who's always revealing things. So there are lots of people like that who are content creators, right, left, center, wherever they are. Where does that content come from? From what journalists have done, right? Whether it's Dhruv Rathee's content, and Dhruv Rathee at least gives a lot of credit. Like I saw a recent video of his electoral bond. He goes to talk about the News Minute Scroll and News Laundry's electoral bond project, which brought all those stories, right? So if you were to take a News Minute or a News Laundry or whatever, Times of India, Indian Express out of the equation, there is no content for the rest of them to make. So you do, whether you agree with the journalism that is done by these people, or whether you agree with a right or a left wing journalist,
But you see it as journalism?
those people, what they do.
Yeah.
No, I think I find I would describe that as a bridge,
Hmm.
as a bridge, right? There is
And to see
journalism.
that, do you see them as allies?
It need not be tomorrow. Dhruv Rathi can do a video, which is I don't see anybody as an ally. In the sense that okay, fine, today he's done a video which about electoral bonds in which he has named us. Tomorrow he may as well as being doing a video saying there is an organization in South India, it really sucks. So I don't see anybody as an ally, but they can use our work. But the point is that all these content creators I feel are important, whether they're right or left or whatever. The point is they are people who are better at communicating these things. For example, I really wish that someone took all the work that we did, like Dhruv Rathee, for example, took all the work that we did on Prajwal Revanna and made a video out of it, and 20 million people watched it. I don't mind if that is not directly done by me, but as long as that work, right, that message of that work reaches people, I'm fine with that. And I've always believed, Anuradha, that a story does not belong to a journalist. I have never agreed with journalists who say, but that's my story. You took part of it and used it. I'm saying that I would be happy if somebody took the News Minute or Dhanya story and wrote the same thing again, or wrote a different version of it, or took it forward, which means my story was so important that it could not be ignored, right? And I believe the story belongs to the person whose story it is, not the person who told the story. So for me, it doesn't matter. I will do the electoral bond story. I'll be happy if 15 other people do it at the same time. And the Dhruv Rathee takes it
So I
forward.
had no resources to do anything about the electoral bonds when they, when the data just was dumped on everybody. So all the conversations that I have had on electoral bonds with whoever I've had them on Keep Talking is thanks to the electoral bonds project that all of you guys collaborated on, and Reporters Collective separately. So I used to keep picking things up from there and using it either to quote from or to visually, show some of the headlines that came out of it. So I hear what you're saying, but where the new? How long has the News Minute been around? Is
10
it
years.
10 years? Yes. So there's a whole bunch of independent digital news outfits that have done a decade.
Yeah.
What is your sense of the business model? Because you've now managed to survive 10 years. You've got a certain momentum, a certain audience that you've built painstakingly over this time. How do you grow on that? What are the challenges that you see in terms of sustaining what you've built?
I mean, a lot of people would tell you that it all depends upon what happens in this election also. We don't
Hmm.
know how the government, if this government does come back, what are the new laws, rules, etc., that they are going to
Hmm.
introduce. And if Newsclick probably's arrest was just a warning for everybody else and what they would do next, right? That's one problem. The second is the business model has not really worked out for a lot of digital organizations because it is still very difficult. And most of us do not want to take advertisements, whether it's from government or political parties, because it does come with some baggage, right?
And then you join the same mainstream media and have
Yeah,
the same challenges or the
yeah.
restrictions that it faced.
Exactly. So we are completely ad free now. We don't have any advertisements on the website. So people think that, oh my God, every day some 100, 150 people are becoming subscribers. They are not. I can tell you it's very difficult to convince Indians of subscribing to news because we are all used to free consumption of news. We're thinking, if not here, I'll get somewhere else. I mean, that is not right. If the news minute shuts down tomorrow, there is not going to be a replica of what we did. If the scroll shuts down tomorrow, there is not going to be, because all of us exist for a reason. And we do certain things in certain ways, which cannot be replicated very easily by somebody else. So, like the Hindu, for example, has a certain utility, right? It can't be suddenly replaced by some other organization. So, I think people have to start feeling that, like, for example, during COVID, I would order food from a lot of small restaurants. Even if I didn't need a food, I would order it because I was like, I have to do something to ensure that they don't shut down. Not that my one meal is going to make any big difference, but still, I felt obliged to do it. That's same with news organizations. You have to be part of the solution. So to convince people to do that, it is quite difficult. So it's not like anybody's having a great time with revenue making. Everybody is just somehow surviving, sustaining. Um, but personally, I am not someone who is like it does not the news minute is not something that I thought I'd do for 10 years. I ended up doing it for 10 years. If I have to do it for 20 more years, I will do it. If nothing works out, then we'll see. But as of now, I think we are finding our rhythm. More and more people are subscribing. We have partnered with News Laundry, who have been doing this for a longer time than us. And they are very good at cracking the subscription model. So we are learning our lessons from them. And I think that it's slowly starting to build up. But more and more people have to realize that it's like that restaurant during COVID time, right? You also have to do your bit because you have to be part of the solution. Because tomorrow, if we shut down, it's my loss and also the reader's loss. And I'm not telling about the news minute per se, but about all these organizations.
Collaborations are the way that you can sustain a lot of resource intensive work, right? um, but having said that, the pool of subscribers is not a very big one because I cannot subscribe to you and the Wire and the News Laundry and Scroll and Mojo and East Mojo and so what is there is also an element of competition therefore, right? Because you cannot, there is only the wallet we know is constrained. So how does a subscriber then choose? That's how I'm saying those are questions I'm sure at some level that you all are confronting as well.
No, I mean, there's no real solution, right? Because the scroll and the news minute can eventually never be one. I mean, we
Yeah.
definitely need our own revenue stream. So
Yeah.
people have to subscribe 1 month to us and 1 month to them. There's no other option. I mean, what else to do? At least once in 3 months, resolve to take one subscription, one visit to a coffee shop you can cut down, and then you can every once in 3 months just subscribe to a news organization. There's no solution for that. Like News Laundry and us, we now have a common subscription, and we are going to roll out more common subscriptions. But that can't be done with every organization, right? See, at News Minute, I have understandings with a lot of regional players. For example, there is a newspaper called Varta Bharati. We allow them to translate all our articles. We allow them to use many of our stuff, and they also give it back to us. We have understanding with Malayalam players. So, at some level, all of us understand that we have to amplify and help each other's work. But beyond the point, we also have to have our own streams of revenue. The problem is it's not like a Times of India or some Hindustan Times, which is like sitting on crores of money and thinking, what vertical will I have this year? Will I have another 200 employees? We're really thinking next 6 months, next 1 year, and again next 6 months. So I wish that situation would change. And that some billionaire in India would just think that I am going to just invest in news and I wouldn't bother about the editorial. They can write about whoever they want. But that's never happened.
Including me. They can write about whoever they want, including me. Now that's where will you find this person, Dhanya?
Yeah, but since that's never happening, please subscribe to one news organization every month.
So more power to you, Dhanya, and to the News Minute and all your collaborators, whether it is News Laundry, Scroll, everybody else out there giving journalism a good name. So thank you, and I wish you a lot of good luck. We'll keep talking.
Thank you so much. Thank you.